Diesel steadies the deck as the vessel clears port, and the Longline plan stays quiet. The wake narrows behind steel, and weather checks are done with routine, not drama. On deck, gloves and boots are checked, because Longline work punishes small mistakes. Bait is cut and set, and every circle hook is checked before it ever touches water. Coils, floats, and leaders are laid out, turning chaos into a repeatable sequence. A paper chart and simple notes set the grounds, avoiding any sonar talk or screens. The first buoy is readied, and the crew rehearses hand signals over engine noise. The set begins with steady pace, because smooth deployment prevents tangles later. Hook after hook drops cleanly, each bait visible, each leader spaced with discipline. The last float goes out, and the set becomes a waiting game under open water. Soak time starts, and maintenance fills the hours while the gear works unseen.
Below, the main line settles, and bait hangs motionless in cold water. Current moves the leaders slightly, but the set stays clean and untangled.
On the surface, hands stay busy, keeping decks safe while waiting for the first sign. A distant float line tightens slightly, and small movements hint that bait has been tested. The retrieval buoy appears, and the crew reads the sea for subtle resistance. Hauler motors warm, guides clear, and positions lock in for a long pull. Hooks rise empty at first, proving patience matters even when baiting is perfect.
A wide spine shape approaches low, and the circle hook seats in a jaw corner. Tension travels up the leader, and spines lift as the fish resists the pull.
On deck, the mainline hum changes, and boots brace for heavy drag.
The buoy line pulls off center, and the vessel holds position with short, controlled turns.
A steady haul lifts the fish, and resistance stays constant like weight on a winch.
Leaders stack on the rail, and the crew keeps spacing to avoid sudden spine contact.
Near the surface, spines flash pale, and the fish rolls against the pull.
Spray bursts at the hull, and the inflated fish surges without any unrealistic jumping.
Rail control replaces strength, and hands work angles to keep the leader honest.
A sling is readied, because lifting must stay controlled around spines and thrashing weight. The sling takes load, and the fish clears the rail in a slow, heavy arc. On steel, the fish thrashes and inflates, and the crew keeps distance to stay safe. Long pliers reach in, and the circle hook backs out from the jaw corner cleanly. The fish is calmed and positioned, and spines settle as air is released gradually. Ice comes fast, because quality depends on time more than pride.
The next gudgeon rises, and bait is still visible, waiting for another hard bite.
A second pull loads the hauler, and the deck sound shifts from hum to strain.
Foam rolls over the rail, and the fish surges again in tight circles beside steel.
Two men manage slack and lift, keeping spines away from leg and gloves.
The fish turns broadside, and the leader angle changes,
forcing slower, steady hauling. The sling seats again, and the lift clears the rail with slow, controlled motion.
A clean D-hook follows, keeping hands outside the spine field and the mouth line clear. Another deck burst turns loud and slippery, and spacing keeps injuries from happening.
Ice and cover follow fast, turning chaos into inventory before the next hook arrives.
The line keeps coming, and the deck rhythm becomes pull, clear, coil, repeat.
Another strike loads the leader, and tension rises without any need for shouting.
The fish inflates more fully, and spines flare as the pull lifts it upward.
On deck, the hauler pitch changes, and hands tighten around wet line and swivels.
At the surface, the fish rolls and slaps water, sending spray across steel and boots.
Two loads come up close, and the rail team manages space as spray thickens.
Slings are staged in sequence, keeping lifts separated so spines never tangle into gear.
The first lift lands hard, and the fish inflates again the moment steel touches skin. The second lift follows, and the crew keeps hands away from spines while the crane settles. Hooks come free in order, and leaders are cleared before any icing starts. Ice and tarps follow, turning active fish into secured load without extra risk. The deck erupts again, and spines scrape steel as the crew backs off on instinct. As light shifts, the haul continues, and every clean coil keeps the pace alive. Another baited hook rises, and the next pull feels heavier than the last one.
Underwater, the natural giant porcupinefish clamps down, and the hook holds firm in the jaw corner.
Spines flare and the body rounds, increasing drag as the fish rises toward daylight.
The sling takes weight again, and the lift stays slow to prevent spine damage.
De-hooking is quick, and the fish is iced flat before the line can snarl.
Hands look tired, but the routine holds, and the haul keeps feeding the deck. The last heavy pull slows the hauler, and the line finally begins to clear. The deck settles into relief, and the haul ends with secured fish and quiet smiles.
At the dock, cold air meets diesel as iced fish moves from hold to shore. Forklifts take over, and the catch becomes pallets, lanes, and cold timing. Receiving checks condition and temperature, keeping paperwork present but unreadable throughout the process.
Cables and drains are staged first, because spines demand controlled handling and clean flow.
A whole fish is positioned, showing spines and body shape before any portion work begins. Skin and spine hazards are managed, and the first cut stays controlled and rinsed. White flesh separates cleanly, forming thick loins that match the species and stay firm.
Portions are squared and trimmed, building consistency for packaging and cold storage efficiency.
A conveyor carries uniform cuts, keeping spacing tight and surfaces consistently clean. Weighing is done by routine, keeping any displays unreadable and the pace steady.
Vacuum packs seal tight, locking freshness without showing marketing, logos, or coded labels.
Quality checks find weak seams early because one leak can ruin a pallet. A light glaze sets on frozen surfaces, reducing dehydration through long storage and transit. Plain cartons close fast, and tape seals the shift without any visible branding. Pallets stack with airflow gaps, balancing stability and freezer circulation across every case. Freezer doors open briefly, and vapor spills as pallets roll into deep storage. Dispatch staging begins, moving pallets forward by routine rather than scanning branded screens. A pre-chilled reefer receives the load, and doors close quickly to protect temperature. Seals are checked by hand, and the cold chain shifts from plant rhythm to road timing. The unit pulls out slowly, and dock noise fades into steady engine drone. Inside cold space, airflow holds frost steady, while vibration tests every wrap and corner. At a cold dock, doors crack briefly, and workers move fast to limit warm air. Pallets enter colder storage, and the chain holds without labels that can be read. One case is pulled for service, turning frozen inventory into kitchen-ready portions. The factory clears down, and clean steel closes the loop from sea to cold storage.
A final pallet check prevents collapse because cold chain failures rarely announce themselves.
Doors shut and latches seat, holding temperature before the next dispatch move begins.
Cold vapor settles again, and sealed cases sit unmarked, waiting for the next order.
Dispatch hands stay fast, keeping door time short so frost never softens at edges.
A short reposition minimizes warm air, and the chain stays intact through careful timing. Receiving doors open briefly, and pallets roll straight into colder storage without delay. The cold room settles, and sealed cases stack quietly, ending the logistics chapter cleanly.
In a plain kitchen, sealed portions thaw slowly, keeping texture firm and moisture controlled.
A clean trim squares the portion, preparing even thickness for predictable heat and plating.
The pan hisses, and the first side browns while the center stays pale and firm.
A quick flip finishes the surface, and resting keeps the portion from breaking apart. Plating stays simple, putting a clean portion at center without branding or decoration tricks.
At a quiet table, an American diner cuts in, revealing firm white flakes under a browned edge.
The first bite lands, and the tone stays calm, reflecting work that already happened offshore. Another plate arrives, showing consistent portioning that began on stainless tables and cold racks.
Conversation stays low, and forks move steadily, ending the story without spectacle or noise. Close detail shows clean white flakes and a mild sheen, evidence of controlled heat and rest. Plates clear, and ordinary light returns, leaving only routine and memory behind.
Offshore, the grounds go quiet again, holding the same risk for the next crew.
The film closes on calm emptiness, and the ocean's scale outlasts one successful haul.